Hey guys, it's me Elizabeth. I'm back with another video. I am going to be doing the opposite of the video that I just filmed, which I don't know which one's coming out first, but this is the 5-star reads on my story graph. So I just filmed a video of my 2-star reads, or 2 and under, like anything that's below a 3-star, my least favorite reads that I have on my story graph. Now I'm going to be doing my 5-star reads. Yeah, I have a lot of 5-star reads. I actually just went through this list and curated it and removed some because I was like, this doesn't apply anymore and things like that. And I thought that some of the ratings I have for some books weren't accurate. So this is my top books ever, essentially. 5-star reads that I have on my story graph. This probably isn't everything because I probably don't have everything I've ever have as a 5-star, but I think this is probably most everything, honestly. And these are my 5-star reads from my story graph. Let's get into it. So this is just a list that the story graph makes of your 5-star reads. It says I have 35 books on here, so I'm just going to start at the top. Some of these books I'm probably going to talk together in a group because I've 5-star read for series, and so I 5-star read each book. So some of the books that belong in a series I'm going to group together as the series as a whole, just so you're aware. So if I don't do literally 35 books separately, it's because some of these books are parts of series, so I'm gonna talk about those books together. So the first one is Cheaper by the Dozen by Ernestine Gilbert Carey and Frank B. Gilbert Jr. This book, okay, I've listened to the audiobook for this. I haven't read it physically yet, but I've listened to the audiobook for this so many times. I usually end up listening to it like once a year because the audiobook is so well done. It's amazing, and I absolutely love this story. Like, this story is so much fun. It's so good. And Frank B. Gilbert, who's the father in this story, is just amazing. And when I think about it, what makes it even more amazing is that this is a true story. This is real people. Obviously, Ernestine Gilbert and Carrie and Frank B. Gilbert Jr. are the children of Frank B. Gilbert, who the story is like main character. So, and it's basically, the title tells you what it's about. It's Cheaper by the Dozen, basically. That's actually, the title comes from a line that Frank B. Gilbert says a lot in the story, which is, like, he says, cheaper by the dozen. Basically, he'll go up to, like, different random people. Like, in one scene, he goes up to an Irishman and says, "Don't my Irishmen come cheaper by the dozen?" and stuff like that. So, it's a really, really good book, and I love it, and it's, you know, up there. It's the 5 stars, and I just love this story. And I just found out, like, a few weeks ago that there's more books written by these authors, and there's also another book that's a second book to Cheaper by the Dozen called Bells on Their Toes, which I didn't know existed, and now I really want to read that one. So yeah, I absolutely love this. It's amazing. If you haven't ever read this book, I would highly recommend you listen to the audiobook because it's so good. It's so well done, and I've listened to it so many times. Next is Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Avonlea, Anne of the Island, and Anne of Windy Willows, or Windy Poplars. All of those are the ones that I've read so far, and basically, I'm obsessed with Anne of Green Gables. This one's gonna be a little bit of a longer clip because I just have to talk about this for a sec. Basically, here's how it goes. I've been watching the Anne of Green Gables movies for the longest time. I would say basically my whole life. I don't know how long it's been, but basically forever. And I've always really liked the movies. And then one year, like years and years ago when I was a kid, I decided I was going to read the Anne of Green Gables book. I didn't know there was more than one book, but I read the book. Actually, I might have known, but I just read the one book. I didn't read the other books because I don't know why, I just didn't. I enjoyed it, but it was whatever. Then, a couple years ago, last year, maybe the year before or something, I was like obsessed with the movies. I was like, I love Anne of Green Gables. This is amazing. Then last year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna read these books. I'm gonna actually read them. So I read the first two and obsessed. I was immediately obsessed. And this year I have read the next two, and I'm reading the third one, the next one currently, which would be the fifth one, I guess. I'm obsessed. I'm absolutely in love. I absolutely love the Anne of Green Gables series. If you haven't read it yet and you're interested, you should definitely read it, because it's just so, I love it. I love it. I'm not gonna say much more than that. I'm obsessed. I love it. You get it. I don't want to go too much longer. Read Anne of Green Gables. 5 stars for every book that I've read so far. Next, coming in with some more classics, we have Dickens, Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens. This is my favorite Dickens book, although I would say it kind of ties with another Dickens book, which will be mentioned later in this video. If I had to choose between them, I would choose Little Dorrit. I've watched the miniseries for Little Dorrit for a very long time, and I've always, ever since I first watched it, it's been my favorite period drama, and ever since then, I've always wanted to read the book, and it took me, like, basically 3 years to read the book, but it's just because it's kind of a harder book to read. Dickens can be kind of hard to read. That's the reason it took me so long, but I absolutely love this story. There are so many great characters, and if you're someone who can read Dickens books and really hard books and you're interested, you should definitely try this one out, because the story is so good. And if you have a hard time reading Dickens and you can't read hard to read books like this, you should watch the miniseries. It's not like perfect to the book or anything, but it is a really good miniseries. It's my favorite period drama, so yeah, I would definitely recommend that as well. But obviously, if you can read the book is better. Next, we have On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness, North or Be Eaten, Monster in the Hollows, and The Warden and the Wolf King by Andrew Peterson, Wing Feather Saga. Middle grade fantasy series. You can see it on my shelf right there. Absolutely amazing. I actually listened to all of the audiobooks for these, and Andrew Peterson narrates the audiobooks. He is so good. Like, I honestly love it when I listen to audiobooks that the author is narrating their own books, because they're just, like, so good at it. Oh, they're so good. But these books, absolutely amazing. Love them. If you haven't read them and you're into fantasy, I don't care if you like middle grade or not, you should give this a try, because they're so good. Oh my gosh. And the ending of that last one, oh my gosh. So good. Next, getting into some history, we have Conversations with Major Dirk Winters, Life Lessons from the Commander of Band of Brothers by Cole C. Kingseed. I listened to this on audiobook last year, and I fell in love immediately. I love Band of Brothers. Basically, I love the TV show Band of Brothers, and I watched it, and immediately I wanted to rewatch it. Like, I had this strong feeling of, I need to rewatch this right after I had watched it. Like, I just love it so much, but, like, at that point in time, I was like, I have to rewatch this. Like, I really want to watch this again. Then I thought, I have an Audible credit. Why don't I listen to the audiobook? And I did that, and then I fell into this rabbit hole, and I listened to a whole bunch of books relating to Band of Brothers, 3 to be exact. But I love Conversations with Major Dick Winters. This book was amazing. Cole C. Kingseed, great author. He's also Dick Winters' like best friend, and oh my gosh, this book was just so good. I love Major Dick Winters. I love it. I thought it was amazing. I love all of the things relating to Band of Brothers at this point. Keeping in vein with the same type of thing, we have Beyond Band of Brothers, The War Memoirs of Major Dick Winters by Cole C. Kingseed and Major Dick Winters himself. This one was written by Major Dick Winters, and oh my gosh, this book is even better than the other one I was just talking about. I love this book so much. It's actually on my top 10 books. I thought this book was so good. I don't know why, but I just really love Major Dick Winters, and I just love, I don't know, I just think it's so good. I love it. Like, obviously, Band of Brothers is way up there. It's probably like 4.5 stars or something, but the ones that are specifically Major Dick Winters are my favorites. I don't know why. I just love Major Dick Winters and Band of Brothers, and it's just so good. Like, so good. If you're into history, give these a try because they're amazing. Next, we have another fantasy, The Way of Kings, Stormont Archive #1 by Brandon Sanderson. Also, you probably can't see it. It's down here, never mind. But I read this book. I absolutely loved it. It was phenomenal. Like, this fantasy is so amazing, and like the books are over 1,000 pages long. Actually, I can just pull this off the shelf and show you it. There are 4 books in the series so far. They're over 1,000 pages long, each book, and there's supposed to be like 10 or 11 books. They're coming out with 5 books and then 5 books, like kind of like that. I don't know when the 5th one's coming out. So yeah, it's amazing. Initially, I was gonna wait to read the rest of the series until the 5th book come out so I could read it like the 5 books grouped together. But at this point, I'm like dying to read the 2nd one because the 1st one was just so amazing. So I'm probably not gonna wait. It's just not gonna happen, I don't think. But yeah, it's amazing. I love it, and it's definitely a brick. It's definitely a really long book, but it's worth reading because it's so good. Now we're coming back to that other Dickens book, Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens. This book is so good. I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about Dickens books and stuff like that, they don't really care about Nicholas Nickleby as much, or Lord, in fact. But I love Nicholas Nickleby. I read this one years ago and loved it. Then I re-listened to it in audio drama form last year, and I loved it. Oh my gosh, I love the characters. Some of the characters in this story are just so well done. And yeah, I just love this. I'm not going to say much more. I do talk about this. Sorry that last clip cut off, but the next one is Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. This is a children's book, I am aware, but I read it and I really, really liked it, and that's why it's on this list, because I gave it 5 stars, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed this one. Yeah, I like children's books, so there you go. I'm a child. But actually, Peter Pan is a really good book. I don't know, I think it's really fun. Now we're moving on to some of my actual favorite books of all time. My number 2 book of all time, which is Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. This book, and again, another World War II story, another true story. This book is utterly insane, amazing. First off, Laura Hillenbrand is an absolutely amazing author. She is so good at writing. I haven't read Seabiscuit yet, which is her other book, but I have it and I want to read it like really soon because her writing is just amazing. But this book, it is insane. So I read it a few years ago, however long ago that was. It was a while ago now. And then I re-listened to the audiobook this year, actually, because I was like, this is just amazing. I need to read this, and I listened to it on audio this time. But this book is just so well written, insane, and amazing, and it's just the story. Oh my gosh, if you have not read this book, you need to go and read it immediately because it's amazing. I don't care if you're into history or not into history, you need to check this one out and read it because it's amazing. I absolutely love this book, and yeah, it's amazing. I'm not gonna give you more than that. you have to go check it out for yourself. So we're moving on to one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and that is The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Pliny. We have Aragon, Eldest, Brithinger, and Inheritance. Actually, you might be able to see right here, or you could see a couple of them. These books are amazing. I love Christopher Pliny. I think he's actually a really good author, in my opinion. I've read, I think, everything that he's written at this point, or most of the things. And this series, I've always loved this series. It's so good. And I actually just reread Aragon this year, the first book. And I still love it. I'm sorry, I love this series. What can I say? It's about dragon riders. And it's got elves and dwarves and all kinds of fantasy, awesomeness, and magic. And I just personally really liked it. I highly recommend the series for fantasy lovers. But if you do read the series, I'm going to warn you that Eldest, which is the second book, can be a little slow. You just have to be aware of that and go in it knowing that, I suppose. But it's amazing. I love it. Next, we have the number 2 spot on my fantasy series. It should technically be number 1, I'm aware, but you probably already know what number 1 is. If you don't, then you haven't been watching my channel for very long or don't know me. But number 2 in the fantasy series is Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I mean, need I say more? You probably already know what this is. If you haven't read the books and you're basing everything you know off the movies, then you can leave my channel because I don't do the movies. I hate them. I despise them. Books are the best. Movies are the worst. I'm not going to go into it. If you know me, then you know my opinions. But I love these books. And there's literally no other book series like this ever. It's amazing. Tolkien is just absolutely an amazing writer. Everything is so good. Everything he writes is so good. I also really enjoyed the Silmarillion, another Lord of the Rings related book. Yeah, definitely, if you haven't read the Lord of the Rings yet, what the heck are you doing? It's amazing. Yeah, it's really good. Most people like the series that have read it that I know of, so it's kind of hard not to. The next one is another series, another one of my favorite series of all time. That's why it's on here. Narnia by C.S. Lewis. You can see it right here. I love this series. Obviously, C.S. Lewis is one of the greatest authors of all time. He is amazing. His books are amazing. Narnia is the best. I grew up listening to the Narnia audio dramas like a million times. Like, we listened to them every night before we went to sleep and things like that. I've read the books all the way through a few times, like maybe once or twice all the way through physically. But I've listened to the audio dramas so many different times that I know the stories like the back of my hand. And Narnia, it's an amazing book series. I think most people enjoy them, at least. They're crazy if they don't. And yeah, I love Narnia. If I'm choosing a favorite out of the 7 books, either Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe or Voyages on Cheddar. I'm not really sure which. I love all of them though. They're all really great. Yeah, I love Narnia a lot. Really a lot. Second to last one, I should say, is The Scarlet Pimpernel by Baroness Orthy. I am obsessed with this book. So, here's the situation. I watched the movie. I've been watching the movie for like basically my whole life again. Maybe not literally my whole life, but essentially. Since I was very little, at least. And I've always loved this movie. I always thought it was hilarious. It was really good. Then I decided, somehow, I think before when I was really little, I didn't know it was a book, but then somehow I ended up figuring out it was a book, and then I decided that I wanted to read this book, And then I decided that I wanted to read this book with my cousin for a book club thing, the same one that I read one other book with. But we never actually got anywhere with it, or she never got anywhere with it. I actually read the book. But I just decided that I was gonna read it, and she didn't read it, and so it's just like, I'm just, whatever, who cares? We're not gonna read it together, I'll just read it by myself. And I fell in love with this book immediately. I was like, I don't know how they did it, but in the movie, the storyline is not exactly the same to the book, but the characters, it feels like they took the character out of the book and put it into the movie, and they maybe changed the story up a bit and stuff like that, but the actual character feels like it's the exact same person, and it's just like, in my opinion, that's good acting on Anthony Andrews' part, and this book is just, I don't know if I have anything else to say except that I'm obsessed with it. It's amazing, and I plan to read every single book that exists in this universe, because there are a bunch of books that she wrote regarding the Scarlet Pimpernel, and I have one to read at some point actually, but they are kind of hard to find. So I'm hoping to eventually find them all and read them all, because it's just absolutely amazing. I love it. And if you haven't read this book, you should give it a try, because you might actually enjoy it, because it's actually really fun. Even though it is a classic, it's actually like a really easy one to read, and it's amazing. I actually got my mom to read it and she liked it. So yeah, it's a really good book. The last book, of course, you're probably guessing I saved the best for last. This is my ultimate obsession. I know everyone was obsessed with this at one point, and everyone hates it now, and all of this stuff. But I'm still currently obsessed with this, and I think I will always either love this or always be obsessed with it. It will always be my top book. Basically, I want to explain a little bit. Hopefully this won't take too long, but I want to explain a little bit why I love this series so much. Because when I think about the different book series and things, I think about Lord of the Rings and stuff, and I'm like, that's a phenomenal series. And if we're going with how it's written and all the stuff that goes, it would technically be the greatest book series ever written, whatever. But it's not my favorite book series, because this other book series, also known as Harry Potter, comes first, because it's just, in my personal opinion, first off, it's just so well written. I love the story. I love the characters. I love J.K. Rowling's writing. And it is the book that got me officially into reading. Before I read Harry Potter, I basically hated reading. I think I was reading Boxcar Children at that time. There was a point in time where all I read was Boxcar Children, and I just read Boxcar Children and Boxcar Children and Boxcar Children. But I don't remember if that was before, during, or after Harry Potter. I read Harry Potter. I'm not really remembering at this point, but it might have been kind of all throughout that. But then I read Harry Potter. Basically, the thing with Harry Potter is that as soon as I read it, I was obsessed. Right after I finished the series, I was obsessed. I loved it. I was absolutely in love with it. And since then, I've read it almost 10 times all the way through. Meaning, I've read all of the books physically 9 times all the way through. A couple of the books 10 times. And I've listened to the audiobooks multiple times besides that. A few of the audiobooks. I think I've listened to all the audiobooks through once. I don't even know if I've read all of them all the way through once, actually. Most of them all the way through once, and I've listened to a couple of the audiobooks more than once. Yes. When I tell you I'm obsessed, I'm obsessed. I have never read any other book more than, maybe 1 or 2 times, maybe 3 times. Except for, maybe Narnia and Cheap Red Dozen with the audiobooks. But Harry Potter, I have read physically 9 times all the way through. For me, that's, I don't think I've ever read a book physically more than, twice, maybe 3 times. So, that just shows you how amazing that book series is. I think it's amazing. I know a lot of people like became obsessed with it and all of that stuff, and it's not like my everything or something, but it is my favorite book series. I am definitely obsessed with it. I love it, and I think I'll just always love it because it's just so good, and I love J.K. Rowling. I don't care what anyone else says. She's a good writer, and I love her stories. What can I say? I love Harry Potter. You probably already knew that. That's the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video and want to support me, you can like the video down below and subscribe. And if you're into history, historical, fashion, or sewing, you can check out my other channel link below. I will see you in the next video. I hope you have your own fun reading adventures.